Preparing to stream live. I always think that we're actually live when it does that. Because you see people doing this. Preparing to stream live. I always think that we're there. Okay. We are going to do that. Hello, everybody. It is Marianne Bailey with the Hip Senior Podcast and the Hip Senior. Today, I am here with Leslie Davis, who is the author of You Can't Eat Love, How Learning to Love Yourself Can Change Your Relationship with Food. Leslie, welcome.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So we're trying something a little bit different today. First of all, we're live streaming on YouTube, and I hope that you're finding us. And if not, I hope you're watching this later. But I have chosen, I met Leslie and I was so overwhelmed with her graciousness and the way that she thinks. I have to be careful in my thought process and what I say to Leslie, because she'll call me on some things that I should not be doing. And I often say, oh, you're right. And so after the last time I met her, she gave me a lot of food for thought, but we had decided that my entire life, I don't know if I've been eating my emotions. For me, it's based on some childhood trauma stuff that I've not been eating, and which has brought up emotions. And I'm sure Leslie has a reasoning for that and explanation for that. But I wanted to tell you all just a little bit about what we're doing today because of that. So I've chosen to put myself out here and to be vulnerable and to be raw and to be 100% honest. And that hopefully my journey in this process, and we're going to have a series of this. So don't worry if you don't get all of your answers today, wait for the next one because we will be doing another one. But you can also always reach out to Leslie through her website. Leslie, what's your website?
YouCan'tEatLove.com.
Perfect. And you can always and do your own process with Leslie as well. But I just wanted to share my process and hope that it helps some of you all with your process in weight loss. And for me, my weight loss journey is not about how I look. Yes, I've dreamt of being like, a size 8 my entire life. And I am 5'8". I know for a fact I'm never probably going to be like a 6 or 7 or an 8. And that's okay. As long as I am healthy and I am happy with myself as far as how I look, where I'm going in life, what I'm doing. But I don't want to put out there that like I'm trying to become a supermodel. I definitely am not. I am just trying to get healthier. So full disclosure, I'm 53 years old. I just turned 53 last week. And thank you, Leslie. And I want to be healthier moving forward because everybody in my family, on both sides, my mom and my dad's side, have had weight problems. My mom's side, like my grandmother was tall, overweight. I had an uncle that was really, really tall, heavy. My parents both were overweight at one point, and then as they got older, they started eating less and stuff, lost a lot of weight. My mom went through a weight loss program, and she lost a bunch of weight, never kind of really gained it back. My grandmother on my father's side was overweight. My aunt was as well. She ended up having bone cancer and some other cancers, but she ended up not being able to walk. She was in a wheelchair. She had bad knees. I'm already having arthritis in my knees. It's kept me from walking a couple of months out of the past year. Physically what's the word?
Debilitating.
Thank you. Debilitating. And I don't want that to be my future. This is why I'm doing this, because it scared me so freaking darn bad that I do not want this to be my future. I don't want to be afraid of eating because I'm going to gain weight and be bad. I want to be mentally sound enough to say, I'm eating because it nourishes my body. And
Okay, hold on.
moving forward.
Hold on.
Yes, ma'am. So
Hold on before you start sliding down the slippery slope of things that you're not going to be able to
see what I
sustain.
mean? She calls me out on this stuff. but that's my point, is I want to be moving. So
okay. So I heard you talking about, your past and your relatives and all of these things and your current arthritis and that kind of stuff. And, you're talking about nutrition and all of those things. But life is life, right? Is life clean or is life messy? Life is messy. Yes.
It's very dirty. It's
very, very messy.
It's very messy.
And, how many times have you made plans and those plans didn't go as you planned? So
sometimes you make plans and you just decide, I didn't really want to do those.
Exactly, 100%. So what I want you to do right now, and this is where we're going to begin.
Sure.
And I hope you got a pen and paper because you're going to have to take some notes.
Oh, that's right. She said I'm going to have homework from this.
But this isn't even the homework. This is simply the class assignment.
Okay.
And for anybody who is sitting and watching and listening to us right now, you do the same thing. And if you want to, you can. Very good. Very good. Okay. Here is my question. And I want you to start verbalizing and just start going stream of consciousness. Where do you see yourself 1 year from now? And I want you to cover every aspect, mentally, physically, and emotionally. I want you to dream as big as you can possibly dream. Because this is a dream. Anything is possible in a dream, right? So without any barriers, without anything stopping you, where do you see yourself 1 year from now? What are you doing? What are you thinking? How are you acting? The whole 9 yards.
I will, but I want to say one thing about this. I love that you're asking me to do this because I had an ex, I'll put it out there. His name is Gary. He was an alcoholic and he used to tell me that I had champagne taste on beer budgets. And I said, if you don't dream, you don't ever move forward in life. So, and I never believed him when he said that anyway. So I was just like, whatever. But, so, okay. Mentally in a year, I want to be deliriously happy.
And how are you defining that?
That I want to be less stress. I can't say stress free. There's always stress in life, right? I want to have less stress.
As a consequence of what?
So I got laid off from a full-time job in December. And so I've thrown myself into recommitting 150% to the hip senior. And so I want to have more customers, more people that I'm helping, more money coming in as a result from that. So I don't have to worry about paying bills. I'm stuck.
Okay, you started off by saying that in a year from now, you see yourself as being mentally happier with less stress. Those are kind of nebulous things.
Right.
So what is going on in your life? Who are you surrounding yourself with? What are you doing? Where are you that you have reduced the stress in your life and you're feeling happier? Remember, you are dreaming. Anything is possible.
I mean, if we're really dreaming, I want to be.
We are really.
I want to win the lottery and be sitting on a beach, like in Belize somewhere, just enjoying the Caribbean.
And I'm with you.
Chances of that happening are pretty slim, but you never know.
But
I don't buy lottery tickets, so we know that's not going to actually happen.
See, right? But that's not in your control, is it?
Of course not.
No.
Of course not.
So what are some things that are in your control? Now you're dreaming. So anything is possible. But you've already said you're going to have more customers, which is going to generate more money, and you're going to be able to not worry about paying bills. Now, do you see how that feels different from simply saying I'm going to be happier and have less stress?
Yes.
Do you see how that's something you can actually hold on to, that you can work towards?
Yes.
Because, okay, let's back this bus up for just one moment.
Okay.
What was the longest trip you took last?
The longest trip I took last.
Yeah, the longest distance that you traveled to go somewhere.
10 years ago, I went to the United Kingdom with my daughter, and
Okay.
2020,
Okay.
I went to North Carolina to the beach by myself.
Okay. So when you went to the UK, did you land at Heathrow and get on the next plane and fly back home?
Of course not.
No, because the trip was not about landing at Heathrow, was it?
No.
The trip was about everything you did after you walked through the doors of the airport and got on the train. I presume that you rode the train into London or wherever you were staying.
No, I made a friend come pick us up.
Okay. So, but anyway, the whole trip was about everything that happened after you walked through the doors, right?
Right.
Did you limit your imagination?
No, we actually went with zero plans
Okay.
other than where we were staying.
Okay. But you did not limit your imagination on what you were going to do. You did not limit your expectation of what was going to happen, did you?
No.
But you knew, even though you went on this trip to the UK, you knew that you were going to walk through the doors of the airport.
Correct.
And then possibilities were wide open, right?
Right.
Did you stay in your friend's car and simply say, I'm going to be in the UK and it's going to be amazing? Or did you get out of your friend's car and do amazing things?
Oh, no, I got out of my car and did amazing things.
Okay. So, how about let's dream what our life is going to look like a year from now. And let's really visualize where we are going to be mentally, physically, and emotionally. And remember, you're not going to simply arrive at Heathrow and turn around and get back on the plane and fly home. You're not going to walk through the doors of Heathrow, get into your friend's car, and stay there for the entire time that you're there.
I've done that before. I've gone to the beach and been looked around and been like, too scared to get out and go.
And how did that feel?
It was awful. It felt like a waste of time. It felt like a waste of energy. I was like, waste of gas. Why did I do that? And then on top of that, emotionally, I was like, why was I too scared to get out of my car and go sit on the beach? Because I looked around and saw all these beautiful bodies in bikinis and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm not part of them. I'm not worthy of being around them.
Okay. And that's a fair that's a fair thought, isn't it? Because it's coming from somewhere, but we're going to address those thoughts later.
Okay.
But do you see how what you're trying to do with your dream of your life a year from now, how you're going to the beach and you're sitting there and saying, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
So we've already backed the bus up. Now we're going to start moving the bus forward again. And I'm going to ask you again, and I want you to start answering honestly. And I want you to take a couple of notes if you can. I'm taking some notes, but I want you to answer honestly. 1 year from now, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your life to look like mentally, physically, and emotionally? The sky is the limit. Remember, we are not going to drive to the beach, get our car covered in salt water and sand, and drive back home. never having enjoyed the sunshine or feeling the lap of the waves on our toes.
So Leslie, remember I told you that I sucked at therapy?
Marianne,
I didn't know how to therapy. I don't know
Marianne.
how to answer questions about like how I'm mentally going to feel.
So what you do then, and I can feel the tension, even though we are not anywhere close to each other. I can see the tension in your face. I can feel the tension. It's as if somebody has been telling you your entire life you are not allowed to dream, that dreaming belongs to somebody else. So where is that coming from? Who is it that has told you Marianne doesn't get to dream?
My parents.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad always struggled to find what his true calling was in life, and now he's retired, never found his true calling. I always felt like he was always kind of floundering, and my mom was a nurse, and so my mom was very subservient to doctors, to men, to anybody out there really. She was always scared to, I always give the example, if she gave me $10 and she wanted it back, she would beat around the bush. I'm sorry to ask. I know I shouldn't bother you. I'm sorry that I have to do this, but I really would, need my $10 because I need to spend it on blah, 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 yeah, type scenario. And I was like, Mom, land the plane, just ask me for the $10, and like I said, my dad was just, it was always, my mom was kind of always the breadwinner for the most part. My parents are still alive, so if this hurts you guys, I'm sorry, but I have to be honest with myself here on this one, which I promised to be.
So who was rescuing your father? Who spent all their time rescuing your father?
My mom.
Your father who was floundering.
My mom.
Your mom spent all of her time rescuing your father.
Pretty much.
What did your mother teach you was your role with regard to your father?
To rescue people, which now that you said that, I clearly see it. And I've always been the one that feels like I have to fix everybody.
Okay, so you learned from your mother, because she was constantly rescuing your father, propping him up, doing whatever. Okay, there is a technical term for that. It's called codependency. But I'm not going to delve off into that. We're simply going to talk about this in terms that people don't have to rush to find a dictionary for. Your mother taught you that it was her job to rescue your father, but your mother was also teaching you through her behavior that it was your job to rescue your father. Now, here's my other question. If your mother was spending all of her energy rescuing your father, and she was teaching you that it was your job to rescue your father, who was busy rescuing Marianne?
Nobody.
Hmm.
I've always felt alone on this earth.
Okay. Do you see why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have the skills to rescue anybody?
Absolutely not.
Did you even have the skills to rescue yourself?
No.
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 So why wouldn't you feel alone?
Knew there was a reason I didn't wear eye makeup for this interview. Okay. I don't know what to say next.
Well, what are you feeling at the moment?
I am feeling disappointed I'm feeling disappointed in my parents for not giving me better guidance as I was growing up. I'm feeling disappointed in myself for not acknowledging or recognizing this before I was 53 years old.
Okay.
I feel like I've wasted half my life.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You didn't waste your life, and I'm gonna disagree with you on the disappointment part. If you don't know, you don't know, correct?
Okay.
So how can you be disappointed in something that you didn't know?
I'm also feeling like I wasn't being fair when I just said that.
Not fair to who?
Based on what you just said, I feel like the like boomers of, say, my parents' age, my mom is 87, my dad is 85. That generation didn't know the things that we know these days, that things that you're saying now. So they couldn't teach us those things because they didn't know this themselves.
Well, and that is a true statement. Now that's not a sweeping statement, but yes, it is true that in some families there wasn't that love and nurturing and all of that care going on. So
there's a lot of things they didn't talk about back then, right?
Right.
Money,
and,
death,
a lot
finances.
of it, to their to explain and understand. They came through the Great Depression. They went through one or two world wars, at least one world war, the Korean War, and then you get the Vietnam War thrown in there too. So they went through more from World War II, deprivation and hardship and all of those kinds of things. However, having put that picture into place, there are still families who were not dysfunctional, where there was honest love and nurturing going on. So right. It wasn't carte blanche. But your mother especially came up through a time when less than 1% of women really, moved forward into the workplace.
Right.
My mother graduated from Rice University. My mother would have been about the same age as your mother. Less than 1% of women actually graduated from college. So, they came up during that time. However, again, I'm saying they were taught what they were taught, and they can only learn what they learned, just as you have learned what you learned. And all of that goes back many, many, many generations. And so now we are becoming aware that the British stiff upper lip is not a good way to go, right?
Correct.
So having said that, we will simply say about your parents, they did the best they could with the information that they had, right?
Yes.
And what we're going to do is we're going to look for information, for explanations, for understanding of why we do things now. Because last time I checked, maybe somebody else has checked and found out otherwise, we don't live our life in reverse.
Correct. I think some people try to, but
yes. So when it comes to, the things that your parents did, the thought process that your parents had, the beliefs that they instilled in you, the words that they spoke to you, that's information. That's all it is information. Pretend you're reading the ingredients on a soup can. It's information. All of those ingredients together make up that soup, right?
Okay.
So yes, you can feel disappointed in your parents. I don't blame you. I would feel disappointed as well. That feeling is valid. But we don't want to go down the road of blame. Because if we're going down the road of blame, well, then we're wasting a whole lot of energy trying to fix the past. The past is the past.
And I've gone my whole life wondering why people blame like their parents, like, oh, my life's dysfunctional because my parents did this, not. And I don't want to be one of those people because I feel like I'm an adult. I should acknowledge what happened, learn from it, and move forward.
And if we have information, then we can understand why we make the choices and the decisions and why we behave the way that we do. But without information, we don't know why.
Right.
And then we can't do something different.
And a lot of the information that I've had through the years, I've buried. Like I was either too young to understand or to process it, or I've chosen that it was so traumatic that I've chosen to, what is it, PSTD? I've chosen to forget it in a lot of ways. So as a 52, 53-year-old, these are like over the last 3 years, especially, are times that I've just really decided to dig in, acknowledge what has gone on, and figure out what's going on in my brain so that I can move forward healthier.
And how does that feel to say that?
It feels good. It feels good.
Are there any voices that are telling you to be quiet about it?
I've long told those voices to hush.
Have you?
Some ways, in most ways, yeah.
Have you?
I was late. My whole life, I've like I said, I have felt unvalidated. I have 2 older brothers who, they're older brothers. I always kind of felt like I was the one. Like, for instance, when I graduated high school, I wanted to go to college, and my mom made it clear that she couldn't afford to send me to college, or they didn't have money saved up for me to go to college. But if I really wanted to, then she would find a way. And so I always felt guilty that, like, my parents can't afford to send me to college, and I don't want to be in debt for the rest of my life doing that as well. And so I didn't go. I recently went back to school after I got divorced. But my whole life, I always felt we would go out to eat as a family once in a blue moon. And my brother, Paul, who before he passed away at the age of 45.
Oh dear. That had to have been rough.
Yeah. I was angry with that. I do know that emotion. I was really, really angry with him for a long while about that. But we'd go out to dinner, and the rest of the family would order water, and Paul would always order a soda. And I always thought, how selfish of you. Here, we're struggling for money. Even as a young child, I knew this. We're struggling for money. And here you are spending money on a Coke, even though it was probably back then $1 more, right? Here you are ordering a Coke while the rest of us are being good, and we're just getting our food and water. Years later, I mentioned this to my mom, and she said, Marianne, are you ridiculous? She goes, we ordered water because we like drinking water. You could have ordered a Coke.
Okay. Do you see how you told yourself a story?
Yep.
To understand what was going on?
Yeah.
But do you also see how your mother didn't provide information so that you could make a choice?
Right.
And the thing that our brain does is our brain is constantly receiving information. And if it's something that we don't understand, our brain starts filling in the holes to complete the story. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You've lost a couple of pieces, and some people will get creative and get another puzzle that doesn't have all the pieces, and they'll cut it to fit the thing so that they can complete the picture. But the thing is, the picture is not complete, is it?
No.
But our brain wants a whole story. So your brain manufactured a story to understand what was in front of you because nobody ever explained it to you.
So back then, if I had stopped and asked my parents, can I have a Coke as well? I would have understood, yes, I could, instead of.
Yes. Instead of feeling resentful towards your brother that he was ignoring. But here's the other thing. You as a young child were not feeling safe because you were aware that your parents were struggling with money. Now, how healthy is that?
I think it's caused me to live my entire life coming from a source of scarcity or
Mm-hmm.
a thought process of scarcity
Yeah.
instead of accepting money, that there's unlimited amounts of wealth in the world and that if you want it to happen, it will.
Or simply saying, you know what, this is how much money I have, and this is what I'm going to do with it. Instead of living, that knife edge of fear, that if I have this one thing that costs a dime, it's going to cause, a crisis.
And that's 100% of how I've always felt about money. I know.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, think about it. Really, why wouldn't you?
And then I married a man who was married for 20 years after that abusive relationship that I was in earlier, and who was not good at handling money.
Mm-hmm.
And so my scarcity issue continued into my married life. And every time, so if we would go out to eat once in a blue moon, I would order dessert. And I got into the mode of where two things about that, where I felt like, wow, I'm an adult. I can choose to eat dessert, because my mom was always like, back in the 70s and 80s, it dawned on me recently. I saw something maybe on TikTok or somewhere that had shown like, hey, back in the 70s and 80s, people ate dessert on special occasions or once a month or whatever, the magic thing in their family happened to be. And my mom, when I was young, sent me to fat camp. It was like a weekly, It wasn't a fat camp, but it was like a weekly check-in at a children's hospital that had a dietitian who walked you through healthy eating, and they made you run and all kinds of stuff. We'd run through the neighborhood and back. And I always felt like my parents were, I did not feel. I knew for a fact that my parents were judging my weight. And if they had stopped judging me so much, and I know it because I could hear them, they would talk about it, especially to me. And so I'm not imagining it. I'm not, assuming like what my parents were thinking. I heard these words from them. And if my parents had just let me be and offered healthy food choices and been like, here, eat dinner. Instead of, my mom would put food on my plate and say, here's your food. Now only eat half of it.
She set you up to fail.
Then just give me half the food instead of saying only eat half of it. But that translated to when I turned into a teenager and bought a car, because my mom was always watching what I ate. I mean, like a hawk. I would eat at work, or I would eat on the way, because I worked at Publix grocery stores when I was 16. I would eat like during my break so I wouldn't have to eat later. Or I would get Taco Bell on the way home because it was cheap and I was a teenager. And eat in my car on the way home so I wouldn't have to face my mom.
And that's part of what I talk about at the beginning of the book, the lies that we tell ourselves. And one of the lies that I would tell myself is if I ate all of the cookies before I got home, they had no calories.
No, I knew stuff had calories.
So what
I
I'm
didn't
saying
have to
is
scrutiny.
You were sneak eating because you felt as if you couldn't be honest about what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I would have much rather have gone home and had my mom prepare dinner for me. I was still a teenager, and have something healthy. But I always knew that came with judgment and
shame.
With shame, telling me to only eat half of it, telling me I should be running, and that stuff translated into adulthood. I had my daughter, and one time my mom came after my daughter was born, and 2 nights later I cooked dinner for everybody, and my daughter started crying 2 bites into my food, and I said, I'll go get her, and didn't eat again until the following evening. And I said, oh my gosh, I really need to eat. I'm starving. I said, I had 2 bites last night. My mom's like, you had 2 bowls. And I'm like, I had 2 bites. Why are you watching how much I ate? I know how much I ate. And even as an adult, this has carried on. And I've let her carry on, and I've let her live rent free in my head. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, she's occupying a whole lot of space, isn't she?
Yeah, she is, in more than one way. I love my mom. Don't get me wrong. I love my mom.
No. It has nothing. Okay,
right.
let's get a couple of things clear really, really, really fast. Love is love. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference.
Right.
Okay.
I do know
We
that.
can love someone and not like what they do, not care for their behavior and all of that, but that doesn't change that we love them. So as long as we can recognize that love and behavior are not the same thing, then we're okay. All right. We can love them guilt-free and not like what they're doing. But we focus on their behavior. So your mother is occupying a huge amount of space
Right.
in your head. Your mother didn't give you the skills and the tools that you needed in order to develop a healthy relationship with food.
Right.
Because here she is putting all of this food in front of you and then saying you can only have half of it. It's like giving somebody $100 and saying you can only have $50 of it, right? Same
Right.
thing, yes?
Yeah.
So I mean, I know for me what it sets off. What does it set off for you?
Anger, resentment, sadness, feelings of loss,
How about deprivation?
deprivation. I mean, to me, it seems like, okay. I try to say, like, looking back, like, oh, she was trying to teach me, but that really wasn't. I know now as an adult that wasn't a good way of teaching me. But I also feel quite judged through my entire life about it. That continued on to probably 10 years ago. I remember my parents went on a cruise and they flew to wherever the ship destination was, Miami or wherever. And I remember my mom calling me afterwards and saying, we saw this girl in the airport and she was gorgeous. And your father said, that's what Marianne would look like if she lost some weight. She made a point to call me and tell me this.
Oh, I can just imagine how you felt when you heard that.
Yeah, I felt unloved in some ways, like you can't love me the way I am. What's wrong with that? Again, judged.
Yeah, well, of course.
I didn't know it. I mean, I felt bad at the time. I was just like, wow, why are you guys looking at other people, seeing me and other beautiful people? Although I appreciate, that the person was beautiful and that you think that I could be beautiful. That's what thought in my mind was like, why am I just not beautiful the way I am?
Well, and it's like somebody told me when I'd lost about 25 pounds, they made a point of telling me how good I looked and how I was so pretty and all this kind of stuff. And I walked away from the conversation. I didn't say anything. I smiled and nodded. I walked away from the conversation thinking, so what did they really think about me before I lost the 25 pounds?
Right.
So, your parents making a point of calling you up and saying, this is what you could be if you lost weight. That had to have been incredibly painful, incredibly painful.
It was.
And it probably set off a whole lot of hamsters in your head.
Of course.
So, since your parents are still alive, then some skills to deal with their unkind comments would probably greatly benefit you. But I'm going to come back around to where we started. 1 year from now, anything is possible. How do you see yourself 1 year from now?
I see myself having learned the skills to stop those hamsters on the wheel in my head when they start. Having learned how to control the way I react to what people say to me. Because people are going to say whatever they want to say, because people just don't have filter these days. But I need to learn the skills of understanding, if it's somebody I care about, understanding how I react to them and how I set my boundaries, so that
that's what I was going to say.
I don't allow them.
It's 100% boundaries. 100% boundaries.
Yeah, it's which I recently learned. They don't teach us as children or adults or teenagers or young adults or even middle-aged adults. That's not a thing until recently, is people learning about boundaries and what we do for them, what we do to set them. Before 5 years ago, I had never even heard. I mean, obviously I know like boundaries around a plot of land or this or that, or territories, history, the boundaries, this and that, whatever, all that stuff. But no one's ever said like there are personal boundaries that people are allowed to set for themselves.
But you see, you grew up in a family where boundaries were not acceptable. Now, not everybody grows up in a family where boundaries were not acceptable. You grew up in a family where boundaries were not acceptable because your mother believed it was her job to prop up your father, and it was your job to prop up your father. It was your job to do all of these things so that everybody else was happy at your expense, right?
Right.
So you were taught you could not have boundaries. And when we are taught that we cannot have boundaries, and then to add to that, you were told when you desired to go to college, well, we really can't afford it. I don't know what your brothers did, or if they desired to go to college, or what their situation was, or what you observed, with their life. But when you express a dream in order to better yourself, and your mother obviously had some post high school education, or she could not have been a nurse.
Yeah, she went to college.
Okay.
She went to college. My oldest brother, who passed away, he got his associate's degree. He went 2 years to college, and then my other brother joined the Navy, and then he has since gone. I think he's got his master's or his MBA, something like that. So
you observed, and you knew that your mother had gone to college, other people in your family had gone to college, and when it came time for you,
my dad did as well.
Oh, okay. You were told, no, sorry.
Yeah. So
again, you don't get to have a boundary.
Yeah. My parents definitely, I feel like they did not set me up for success. And I've seen that as an adult, as a parent myself. I have, just for the record, I have a 25-year-old daughter who just graduated with her bachelor's in psychology with a degree of whatever it is, science. But because of what I felt to be my inadequacies of not going to college, I always pushed my daughter, like, you are going to college. It wasn't even really, I didn't let it like be her choice. I let her decide whatever she wanted to do. I don't care what you want to do.
You're going to college.
You continue and at least get your bachelor's. And after that, I am fine with whatever she wants to be in life and whatever she wants to do. But I set her up. I'm like, hey, let's start looking at, where you're going to go to college, what you're going to apply for. My parents never did that. They never talked about college with me. They knew I hated high school with a passion, and they never.
What you did was you cleared the path for your daughter to walk the path that you didn't have the opportunity to do. Now, I get the whole making sure your daughter understood that she was going to college thing. Both my parents graduated from Rice University. It was understood. There was no discussion. You're going to college when you finish high school, period. Didn't make any difference if that's really what you wanted to do or didn't want to do. You had no option. So anyway, all 6 of us kids, I'm the oldest of 6, all 6 of us went to college. All 6 graduated. But do you see how you were imposing on your daughter something that you wanted? We're not here to talk about your daughter. What we're here to talk about is you, and what you were taught by your parents was that you didn't get to have freedom of choice. You didn't get to have a boundary because it wasn't your choice to not go to college.
Right.
You simply had no options.
I will say, however, if my daughter had come to me and said, "Hey, I've got another plan. This is what I'm going to do," I would have been okay. Just so we put that out there. But
yeah, no, you would have been okay. You are correct. You would have been okay. But you were sending her down the path to make sure she didn't miss out in the way that you felt that you had missed out. But you were wise enough to know, okay, if she doesn't want to go, that's fine. So if you a year from now, you've learned the skills to stop the hamsters and you've learned how to control your reaction to other people. I'm going to tell you a secret. You are only in control of you.
Right.
You are not in control of anybody else. Zero control of anybody else. So what anybody else does or doesn't do or anything that's out of your control. And when you talk about controlling the reaction to whatever they're putting down, you have a choice. So instead of saying, I'm going to control my reaction, instead say, I'm going to choose how I react.
Okay. I do know that I've had people in my past that have told me things to get a reaction out of me.
Well, of course they do.
And when over probably the last 5 years or so, since I went to therapy, when they would do that, I would say, they would be like, I'd be like, okay, like whatever it was going to be. And they're like, well, wait, why aren't you reacting to this? I mean, they literally asked me, why aren't you reacting to this? Because if you're an adult, if you choose, that's what you want to do. I cannot control that. So I have been working on setting those boundaries and learning that. But it's slow going. It's trying to undo 53 years of wrong thought process.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because it has taken 53 years of practice to get you where you are. So to expect an overnight change is unrealistic. It's slow going.
Right.
We make mistakes. We were talking earlier, what does FAIL stand for? First attempt in learning. Okay, so I failed at my diet this week. All right, you're right, I did. It's my first attempt in learning. I did not learn how to portion food. All I learned was that my mother put food in front of me and told me to eat half. Well, half is kind of a subjective thing. How much is half? Is this half? Is that half?
Right.
I did not learn
depending on the size of your plate, right?
Yeah, right. I did not learn how to make a good food choice. I didn't learn how to, go to the grocery store and buy what I need. What I learned was this plate of food arrives in front of me and I'm told I can only have half of it. That's what I learned. So when we struggle now to make I hate using healthy choices. When we struggle now to make a better choice, of course we struggle to make a better choice because it's going against everything that we learned. And when we make the better choice, the first thing that's going off in our brain, and tell me if I'm wrong, the first thing that's going off in my brain is, how much of this do I get to eat? Do I get to eat all of it? Do I get to eat half of it? How much do I get to eat? Do I have to eat it in the car so nobody knows that I ate this? Or can I bring it all the way home and prepare it and actually sit down and enjoy eating it?
Part of my thought process when you say that reverted back to that source of scarcity that I've always felt. For me, it's not necessarily like I struggle to get like a full meal in. I'll eat 3-4 bites of something and I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I think it's more emotionally and mentally that I'm like, okay, if I stop eating this now, then I have a full other meal for tomorrow and I don't have to spend more money to eat tomorrow.
Okay.
And so, but the same thing happened like when I was younger, when I moved out of my parents' house, I met my now ex-husband and we would go out, and one of my favorite desserts in the world is cheesecake. Like I like cherry pie, I like cheesecake, I like chocolate cake. Those are my 3 top lines. And so we would go out for a special occasion or something, and I would allow myself to order dessert. I would get like a piece of cheesecake. I would eat like 2 bites and the rest would come home. And that slice of cheesecake would last me an entire week. And not necessarily because I thought of portioning out those calories on a daily basis. It was more of, if I finish off this piece of cheesecake, it will be gone and I cannot afford to get another piece.
So deprivation was raging.
Yes. The same way with not finishing my meal, knowing now I have another half of this for tomorrow's meal. So I'm not necessarily thinking like, oh, I'm only going to eat half of this because that's the way I was raised. It's become and especially after getting laid off in December from my Google job, I'm seeing myself reverting back to that of, if I only eat half of this now because groceries are tight right now, because money's tight right now, because I'm growing my business, all this other stuff. If I don't eat anything all day long, but I eat one meal, then I'm conserving that money towards I'm not spending that money on food. I'm spending that money on my electric bill or my internet bill or my rent so that I'm not homeless. It's all coming from a source of scarcity for me. And even though my business is growing, thank God, and thank you so much, everybody, but I still see myself coming from a source of scarcity when it comes to things like that.
Okay. I get it. So what I'm going to suggest is that since you know yourself and you know that you're only going to eat a small amount, I want you to start preparing your meals in a small, do it one of 2 ways. Either prepare a small amount and then prepare another small amount, a day later or another, or prepare the food, portion out the small amounts and put the other small amounts into the freezer to be consumed later.
Yeah, I would rather create smaller amounts each day. I don't do well with leftovers.
And that's fair. That's fair.
To me, if I don't eat it today or tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you see how you actually could end up saving money by creating smaller amounts?
Of course. Of course. To me, it's a learning process because
of course it is.
I had a family and now it's just me and my dog. So it's become like, how do I nourish my body and how do I nourish my soul, apparently, in my mind, while living alone.
Yeah.
That's in itself has been a mental challenge as well. I think I know for me, and I know a lot of widows that are struggling with this, like when their husband passes away or their wife passes away, how do we create healthy eating patterns when it's just us, because a lot of times, I work all day. It's a lot easier for me to go in and grab a bowl of cereal or a thing of yogurt for dinner than it is to prepare a meal.
Yeah. Of course it is. Of course.
And for somebody who doesn't like leftovers and meal prepping, because to me, a frozen meal like that is the same as a leftover in my head. That it's a struggle. I know my air fryer gets a lot of use these days, though.
Well, what I have found is when I freeze stuff, I heat it in the air fryer. I use the air fryer to heat it up.
The air fryer and my Instant Pot are my two favorite different stuff.
Yeah.
I barely ever use my stove these days just because it's a lot easier just to throw a small portion of something in my air fryer than it is to heat up my entire stove.
Yeah. And if you line it with aluminum foil, there's no cleanup. So
yeah, I buy those little parchment paper liners that go in there. My mom taught me that, of all people. She taught me that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, like I said, I know out there, listeners that you may be listening, if you just joined us, we're talking about not Leslie Davis. She wrote the book You Can't Eat Love, and this is me being honest, raw. I went to therapy after I got divorced, and I told my therapist, I don't know how to therapy. I've never been taught how to talk about what my emotions are, how I actually feel about things. When you keep asking me, like, mentally, physically, emotionally, where I'm going to be in a year from now, I don't know how to tell you where I see me in a year. I mean, obviously, a year from now, I could say a year from now, I want my business to be more successful than it is today. I want to have, 5,000 new customers. I want to have money in my savings account so that I know that I have an emergency fund. I want to be emotionally stable and feel secure with myself. Where some days I don't think I do. Physically, I want to be 100 pounds lighter than I am right now.
Now,
I know what that magic number is in my head.
How did it feel to put words to that? Because that really is the first time that you've honestly answered the question.
It's hard.
How did it feel?
See, you're asking that question again. How did it feel?
You can tell me a story. You can paint a picture.
I don't know how it feels. To me, it's a matter of fact. I don't know how it feels. I don't know how to answer that question. I never have understood. Like, I know feelings. I can tell you I'm happy. I can tell you I'm sad. I can tell you I'm angry.
Okay, listen deep down inside of your body. And are you feeling lighter? Are you feeling heavier? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling possible?
I'm scared.
Okay. And you're scared because?
I'm scared. So the person sitting on the camera right now wants to say, oh, I'm scared because, changing your life is scary, whatever. I'm scared of disappointing myself if I don't reach whatever goal it is that I set.
All right. Okay. Hold on. You've flown a few times, right? And what part of the world do you live in? I forgot.
I'm in Ohio.
Okay, you're in Ohio. There are big cities in Ohio, right?
Yep.
I would imagine that you've encountered a traffic jam on occasion, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
I've
when
sat
you
in
ran
traffic jams in Chicago.
Okay, in Chicago, I think that beats Houston. So when you were in the traffic jam, did you park your car, get out, and walk home?
Of course not.
No. So when things don't go exactly the way that you thought that they should, we'll talk about that word another time. When things don't go exactly the way you think they should go with regard to your business, your weight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, why would you park your car and get out and walk home?
It's not a matter of like I would give up. It's a matter of just disappointing myself that I didn't reach that goal, that I let myself down.
But it's the same thing. When you hit a traffic jam, do you get angry with yourself for hitting that traffic jam?
No. Something I could not control.
Do you get disappointed in yourself when you hit that traffic jam?
Sometimes.
But you know, I can say, oh,
sometimes
my gosh,
like I knew I should have left earlier and I would not.
But that's not really disappointment. That's like, oh, you know, I should have. That's not really disappointment, though. That's just
common sense.
Just a statement of timing. That's all it is. So when we live our life, if we observe the things that keep us from achieving our goals, our destinations, and our dreams in the time that we expect to, if we look at those roadblocks we run into as a traffic jam, and we treat them just as we do a traffic jam in real life, then we can keep on moving. Because when you hit a traffic jam on the freeway in Chicago, what did you do until traffic was moving again? Tell me what you did.
Talk to the person in the passenger seat.
Okay.
Listen to music.
Okay.
Flirted with the guy in the car next to me.
Okay. But at no point did you park your car, get out, and walk home.
Right.
So the same thing, when we hit roadblocks on this journey that we're going on, because that's really what we're doing. We're traveling on this freeway, and sometimes it's wide open, and sometimes, oh my gosh, it's gridlock for miles. If we can remember, let's change the radio station, let's phone a friend, let's talk to the person in the car with us, let's flirt with the guy next to us, let's do all these things, but we're going to keep moving forward. Because when you're in that traffic jam, what direction are you not going?
Backwards.
There you go. You're just moving forward slowly, right? And sometimes you're just sitting still. Correct?
Yep.
But what are you not doing?
Moving backwards.
Right.
All right, Leslie, we're almost out of time. What's my homework?
Yes. Your homework is to envision yourself where you're going to be a year from now. And then write a letter from yourself 1 year from now to the you of today, and thank yourself for all the hard work that you did, and get as specific as you can, and tell yourself of today how much you appreciate that you today decided to do all these things so that the you of a year from now is beginning to live that life that you envisioned.
I did have an experience with that this week. I'll leave you with this real quick. So again, got laid off in December, and my birthday was last week. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to renew my car tags. You know, that's $100 out the door. I've got my water bill and this, and this, and this. And then something struck me, and I went outside and I looked at my car tags, and I realized, I was like, my past Marianne set future Marianne up for success, because when Marianne had Google money last year, I paid for 2 years of car renewal for my tags. And I thought of that. I was like, wow. I said, my past me set myself, future self up for just a little bit of success. And I was so grateful for that this year. So I will definitely do this letter, because I know that there's value.
You actually experienced it.
Yeah, I know that there's great value in that. So Leslie, if people are watching this and they need to get a hold of you, they can go to youcan'teatlove.com, correct?
That's right.
And they'll find all your contact information and more information about you.
Yes, they can. They can.
Okay. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I know today was like I said, I don't do well at therapy. I am learning. I am trying very hard. I am walking through the process on a daily basis. And I hope that you found some value in learning with me, and that we can continue this journey together. Again, my name is Marianne Bailey. I own thehipsenior.com, where I help bring valuable information to seniors aged 55 and up, as well as their caregivers and their family members. So I hope you'll continue to walk this journey with me, and leave some comments below. Let us know what your struggles are, what your challenges are, how you've worked through things, you name it. Just have a conversation with us. Leslie, again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Marianne. And just remember, you are enough.
I am enough. I will work on that. Thank you.